We're looking at adding and subtracting unlike fractions. To find the sum or difference of two fractions with unlike denominators, you need to rename the fractions with a common denominator. Then you're going to treat them basically like adding and subtracting fractions with common denominators. So let's take a look at this example. 2/7 plus 1/5. The first thing we'll need to do is find the least common denominator, which, if you remember, is essentially the least common multiple. Because these two numbers are both prime, really makes it rather simple for us. All we need to do is multiply them together in order to find out what our least common multiple would be, or least common denominator, which would be 35 in this case. So from here, I need to multiply 2/7 by 5/5, which is essentially 1. We're trying to come up with an equivalent fraction for both 2/7 and 1/5. For 1/5, we're going to multiply it by 7/7. So 2/7 times 5/5 will give you 10/35, and 1/5 times 7/7 will give you 7/35. At this point, it's the same thing as adding two fractions with like denominators. The denominators stay the same, and the numerators are added. So our solution here would be 17/35. Now let's look at a problem where we have to subtract two fractions with unlike denominators. Here we have two mixed numbers, and we can solve this in one of two ways. One way to do it is to create improper fractions out of them. But the first step we'll have to do is to get them to have common denominators. So for 9 1/3, an equivalent fraction or mixed number would be 9 2/6. I multiplied both the numerator and denominator by 2/2. And then 2 1/2, the equivalent fraction would be 2 3/6, multiplying both the numerator and denominator by 3/3. Next, I would make improper fractions by multiplying the denominator with the whole number. That's 54 for this one. Adding 2, which gives us 56. For our second fraction here, multiply 6 and 2, you get 12. Add the 3 and you get 15. At this point, they both have common denominators. You can treat them as fractions with common denominators. Denominator is going to stay the same when you subtract it, and 56 minus 15 is 41. And then we'll want to make a mixed number out of this. 6 goes into 41 6 times, with 5 left over, and our denominator is going to remain the same. So 6 and 5/6 would be our answer for this. Another way to solve this is to, in fact, not make them improper fractions. Instead, just keep them as mixed numbers. And over the years, I've actually come to prefer this method because you don't have to do nearly as much math. Now I'll show you in a second how I went from 9 2/6 down here to 8 8/6, but let's go ahead and solve this problem first. We're going to subtract our whole numbers. 8 minus 2 is 6. Our numerators, 8 minus 3 is 5. And our denominator stays the same. Now what I did to get this number to this number is this. I took 1 from the 9 and I kind of parsed it out. Oh man. So what I did was this. I basically just borrowed 1 from the 9 here. So here's 8 plus 1. 6 over 6 would be 1. And then there's that at the 2/6. Our whole number 8 goes down here. 6 plus 2 is 8. Our 6 is common denominator, so that would stay the same. And I find this method just to be a lot easier to deal with than making improper fractions.